1 year on from the release of Destruction Derby, Psygnosis and Reflections once again teamed up to release a sequel to the much beloved racing game. This is Destruction Derby 2. Released in late 96, early 97, this game was available for the PlayStation 1 and also released on MS-DOS. We'll be focusing purely on the PS1 release because it was slightly better optimised. This time round, MS-DOS didn't lose anything, but simply put, the PS1 game looks and runs slightly better. So, what has changed from the original Destruction Derby? Well, at first glance, it looks like practically everything, I would think. I mean, the cars look a lot smoother, the tracks are bigger, longer, wider. The destruction is more apparent. You've got pieces of car, hood and bonnet all over the place. And you've also got, that. Finally, Destruction Derby exists in all known dimensions. Cars can finally leave the road, be flipped, rolled over, and just generally fly about the place in one of the most hilariously unrealistic physics engines I've ever seen in a racing game. But we didn't come here for realism. We came here for fun, and that says to me, we're gonna have a damn good time. Looking at the controls, we see a significant improvement. I no longer feel like I'm out of control at any given moment. I know I lose control when I veer off the track, hit the dirt, smash into a wall, and I know it's because of my own stupid mistakes. The rest of the time, I feel like I have complete control over these cars. In addition to the graphical and control improvements, the sounds have been slightly improved as well. The smashes and crunches from the previous game have been brought back, but have been tweaked slightly to make them feel more satisfying. And the music soundtrack is something more to my taste. Performed mostly by a band called Jug, this heavier rock track is definitely more suited to my personal preferences. But let's hold on, stop, deep breath, take a step back, because we've seen all these amazing improvements across the board, but let's talk the important thing. Let's discuss the gameplay. Right off the bat, we've lost multiplayer, which, to be fair, is no big loss considering how much of a pain in the backside it was to set up in the original. Instead, we've got a hot seat multiplayer style mode, and really honestly, I don't think it needs to be there. It's quaint, but not necessary. However, returning from the previous game, we do have the three major game modes. Stock car racing, where you simply drive to be the front of the pack and reach the finish line in first place. Destruction mode, where you go all out, all v all, last car standing wins. And lastly, wrecking racing, a game where you do earn points for finishing in first place, but you can earn a lot more for spinning out your opponents and destroying their cars. Now, whereas before I said wrecking racing was probably the most fun, you have to start in wrecking racing when you start with this game. If you start with stock car mode, you will find yourself very frustrated. It's all too easy to be up in front, miles ahead, to then get nudged off the road, spin out of control, get smashed by the following participants, and find yourself right at the back of the pack. And it's so difficult to get back up the front that really honestly stock car mode is going to take a lot of practice before you get any enjoyment out of it. Instead, stick to wrecking racing. Go with the wrecking racing championship. It's definitely more fun because even if you do get knocked into last place, you can always turn around and smash into those idiots that knocked you off the road and earn a few points that way. But before you jump into the championship mode, you've got to pick your car. You've once again got 3 cars to choose from, acting as the game's difficulty settings. And whilst they're not as colourful as they were previously, they do practically the same job. In your first race outing, you'll see the massive improvements all round. The better graphics, the bigger and longer tracks, the jumps included to show the 3D physics engine. You've also got more interesting scenery, improved backgrounds, and also in this first track you'll get the first instance of the pits. That's right, whereas before in the original you only had one shot at finishing a race, this time round you've got a bit of a respite. Using it once in wrecking racing mode and multiple times in stock car, you can pull into the pits, swing around any of the 6 sections and pump out any damage you have received during that race. Now obviously this links into the damage mechanic, which this time has been dramatically simplified, having 6 sections instead of 10. The rear 2 representing the back axle, the mid 2 representing the front wheels for some reason, and the front 2 representing the engine. Now as you progress through the championship mode, you'll notice there's only 4 leagues this time round with 5 cars apiece. And also you don't have the returning roof colour mechanic. All cars' paint jobs will remain the same throughout, making it a bit more tricky to spot who's in what league, but shouldn't affect the overall game at all. In stock car mode you get the 4 races and the 4 tracks. You reach the top of the league, you move on and get promoted to the next league. In wrecking racing you have 4 races again, but at the end of it you have the all-important bowl featuring the destruction mode. And the first bowl you are given to play with is the Red Pike Arena, with one hell of a jump in the middle there. Automotive mayhem at its craziest right here, folks. And hey, once you've completed this and won your league and got promoted, the next season starts. You unlock a new track and you unlock a new bowl. Do this 2 more times and you've got yourself everything unlocked, including the pit bowl, which is a massive dip in the middle, kind of the inverse of the Red Pike Arena. And you've also got the Death Bowl, which is a large semicircle, which to one side has a massive drop which instantly destroys your car. I never thought I'd see a demolition derby quite like that. So there we have it, folks, Destruction Derby 2, far superior to the original in every single way. Well, almost. I miss the league colour groups. I liked being able to see who was in my league and who I wanted to stop from winning at all costs. But then in addition to that, gone are the cool car graphics from the original game. I mean, this is, you know, to make way for the improved damage engine and make space for all the extra physics, but I kind of get lost. I'm not sure which one's Barmy Army, which one's Suicide Squad, and which one's Rivet. And I'm completely lost when it comes to the Beast and the Undertaker. And whilst we're on graphics, although you've got bigger tracks, some of the textures look pretty dire from this restricted camera angle. The skyboxes are really bad, and the road textures are pretty awful. But I expect the developers were probably hoping you were too busy smashing and crashing to actually stop and take notice of that kind of thing. But besides, the textures of the tracks a lot better because they're bigger and they're wider and they're longer? I don't think so. I think it's lost a lot of charm from the original. In this game, like I said previously, if you're up the front and get knocked off the road, you find yourself at the back of the pack and it's almost impossible to get back up to the front. And where are the crossroads? Where's my figure 8 circuit that I loved so much from the original? Okay, yeah, so Black Sail and SCA have got a few crossover points, but it's not the same. With the pack so spread out, like I said before, it's very rare you're going to come across a situation where you're actually going to collide with another vehicle. It can make long sections of these courses quite dull and boring when you're the only one in the area. And as for the pit function, it's a nice idea, but it takes too long. I mean, you drive into the pits, the computer takes control of you, and you slowly creep towards your pit section. You've got your 5 seconds to buff out where you mash the button as quick as you can to get everything back up to green. And then the computer once again takes control of you, you slowly trundle towards the exit. And then before you know it, you've got control, you've got your finger on the throttle, and you've collided straight into the pit wall because you don't know when you're getting control back. And then there's the bowls for the destruction mode. Now I personally think this is the game's strong point. This is probably by far and away the most fun I've had in this game, with the unique tracks and the 20 car mayhem. But all too often I find myself losing my rear axle and finding AI controlled opponents that sit at the top of the bowl and hide from you. So you're just driving around in circles desperately trying to get up what is supposedly a flat circuit like the Colosseum, and you can't reach them. You're just not going to touch them, so you have to sit, pause and retire, kind of taking the fun out of the game, especially when it's meant to be a fight to the death. Oh, and trying to gain points by smashing into cars with this new physics engine becomes a little bit more tricky. It's all too easy to roll a car over and get practically no points whatsoever. But even when you do smash into the side of a vehicle and make it spin out, you might not be awarded any points at all, just based on the fact that another car was possibly touching it at the time. And then you've even got instances where you just pass through opponents' cars and it's as if they were never there. Kind of taking the fun out of it and just making it just that little bit frustrating when you think you're going to get some massive points. And that being said, There's also no reward for racing normally in wrecking racing. My best scores have come from simply turning the car around and driving headlong into oncoming traffic. In the previous game, I would end up destroyed before I got any points. This time round, I just simply have to abuse the physics engine and just drive headlong and hope to God that they launch into the air and spin out massively. So there's a lot of good and a lot of bad in Destruction Derby 2. From a personal standpoint, I rather enjoyed the game. I just don't think it had the charm that the original did. Taken on its own merit though, Destruction Derby 2 is a fantastic vehicular combat game. Driving headlong into cars, smashing them to smithereens, launching them miles up into the air. It's really, really satisfying. Okay, I'm not as involved and not as vengeful as I was before, but it still scratches that road rage itch I get occasionally. And for all the gripes I have about it, when I did go to record game footage, I did have trouble putting it down. Even achieving first place in all of the leagues, unlocking everything, I still wanted more. And so with that, if you want car crunching action, you could do a hell of a lot worse than Destruction Derby 2. And so with that, my recommendation to you is that you go out there, you find this game and you try it. Because if you like your arcade racing games with a bit of mayhem and destruction, this should tick all the right boxes for you. Thank you very much for watching Crash TSET. Buckle up and stay safe.